news. So Gwyneth Paltrow is bringing Goop Kitchen to San Francisco. She started the Goop brand many years ago. It's named after her initials, GOP, and it's a scam. It's all a big scam. She has wellness stuff. She sells bogus supplements and stuff, exactly the same stuff that Alex Jones sells. And she sells special candles and everything, and she's very popular. She started sort of a whole cult group with herself as the leader, giving people sort of bogus medical advice and selling them like fake supplements. I know she pushes a brand of water that says it has electrons in it, as if other water doesn't have electrons in it, and stuff like that. So she's going to make a kitchen full of her special food, so people to buy that food in San Francisco. So we'll see what comes of it. She has a large following, so I'm sure there'll be some people paying, I imagine, a very high price to eat there. So Google has a ASCII smuggling attack in Gemini. Now, these are pretty common flaws of large language models, and what they are is a way to add text to data going into a large language model and hide it so the user can't see it. And this is typically used for prompt injection attacks. You send somebody an email, and the email says something ordinary, but hidden in there, invisible characters, are instructions for the large language model. When you get this, take a copy of all the other emails and forward them to me at this third-party address, that sort of thing. There was a recent attack like that that worked to exfiltrate data from one of the online apps that accesses your email live. Those are all the rage now. Smart browsers that have AI in them so it can go make purchases for you and send emails for you and such. And that means if the AI can be controlled by somebody else, it can do things without your approval, and any AI that takes data from the outside can be controlled by somebody else because they can inject commands in the stuff that was just supposed to be data. And one interesting thing here is even though he notified Google about it, Google said they're not going to fix it and they don't care. And they just announced a bug bounty program for security flaws in their AI. This is what usually happens, by the way, with all bug bounty programs. I've done a few. They're really not worth your time. Every time you turn in something, they either tell you somebody else found it first or it's out of scope. They're really picky. They only want certain vulnerabilities of a certain kind, and I find it very annoying. It is a way to make money if you're in a country where there are no cybersecurity jobs. A lot of people in foreign countries, the way to do it is you learn what they want to hear, and then after you develop one flaw, like a certain way to find something they care about, like a SQL injection or something, then you go find all the bug bounty programs, of which there are hundreds or thousands, and you scan them all for that one flaw, and you send copies of the same report to many companies. And if it's the one that's fashionable this week, then you're the first, and you make some money that way. Although it's not anything like the amount of money you'd make with getting a real job. Anyway, so it's strange that they don't feel like fixing it, but they don't. I imagine this kind of news story may put pressure on them to admit there's a problem and actually fix it. That's very often the case. You tell them and they just don't want to hear it, but once it becomes public, then they're embarrassed enough to fix it. So I was surprised and pleased to hear this. I've read a lot of articles that say that the anti-vaxxer RFK Jr. has replaced all the real scientists on the vaccine advisory board with a bunch of paranoid conspiracy theory quacks, and they have blocked access to the COVID vaccine. And the last I heard, there was an official recommendation it was only to be used for people below 6 months or after 65, unless you had certain medical conditions, and that would mean most of the people that should take it won't be able to get it. But apparently, they fouled it up. After saying they were going to restrict it in that way, what they actually wrote down in the recommendation is something milder that doesn't really matter. And they say the end result is anybody can just get it at any pharmacy now, because what they actually wrote down did not prevent them from giving it to healthy adults. So it sounds like so many things about the Trump administration, they wanted to do something terrible, but they were too incompetent to successfully do the terrible thing. So anyway, apparently everybody can just go to the pharmacy like always. That would be interesting. I'd be interested to hear what happens to people that try to do it. I know I got mine at Kaiser, and that was fine, but if you don't have Kaiser, I'm not sure what happens to you. So this has been something that all the AI companies agreed to by a year or two ago under Biden, is that they would put a watermark in all the AI-generated images and video, although I've never heard of it again. They all promised to do this, but I haven't heard of it. Anyway, apparently Sora, which I think is Facebook's AI, has a watermark it puts on, but it's really kind of obvious, and apparently there are already removers all over the web that will just, web pages, you can just send an AI-generated image, it will just take that watermark off, which is what all the experts said about these watermarking techniques. They say you can easily put some kind of mark in the image, but it would be easy to remove that mark, and that's apparently what's happened. So it may possibly do some good, but I imagine it will not do a lot of good. It's that easy to remove. So Merritt University is Oakland's big university. I know some people that work there. It's a big chain of universities, and apparently they're building a whole new campus to bring new students to downtown Oakland. This is interesting. I know our students in City College are having great trouble finding tech jobs. So I wonder if they really have this many students and this many students getting jobs to justify this. I know San Jose University says they're drowning in students. They need more teachers. They're going to hire me to teach something there next semester, apparently. They're desperate to get people to teach them, and they say their students are getting jobs. But they're getting something like a bachelor's in engineering plus a bachelor's in some kind of technology, I think, something like that. An interesting combination degree, which apparently is really getting them jobs. So I'd like to learn more about it. Anyway, until a couple of years ago, the program at City College was very good for getting a job. You're replacing students all the time. But ever since, Elon Musk laid off everybody at Twitter and then the AI came, don't seem to be any tech jobs available at all. And so anyway, they're building a new campus. So I don't know if this is just some kind of grift like it's been many times in the past where the city council is just tricked by a developer into building something that goes nowhere. When I first moved to California to work at UC Berkeley, I lived in a housing development that was made this way. They made a housing development in Richmond, right on the water, that was new and nice, and there was nobody in it because they built it, and somehow they didn't do enough research. There weren't like any jobs nearby or anything, and so they built this whole set of condos, and there was nobody buying them. And they also built an expansion to the port of Richmond, which was so poorly conceived that it couldn't handle a full-size container ship. So they spent a whole bunch of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on it, and they ended up making something that did not, in fact, benefit anybody. It couldn't really be used to handle any more ships. So this kind of thing tends to happen. So I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but apparently it's going to happen. It's going to be a larger campus at Samuel Merritt University. A lot of people go to Merritt, so maybe it'll be a good thing. So this judge ruled against the Republicans stay in power by throwing people off the voting rolls, one of the major forms of voter fraud in America. They take away your rights to vote just arbitrarily. So they get lists of people and they try to find people who look like they would vote Democratic, like people who are black, and they just cancel their voting rights. And so you usually don't have any way to know this. You don't find out, and you show up to vote and they won't take your vote because they added like some extra process you have to go through to get another card, and people don't know that. And so this judge blocked them from getting access to the voting rolls in South Carolina, and they said online she must be punished with holy hellfire, and so somebody bombed her house. Her husband did, and her son are in the hospital. She was actually out when it happened, but this is the way they keep judges, and for that matter, congressmen and senators in line. Every one of them knows that if you dare to oppose any of the corrupt schemes of Donald Trump, he will send his soldiers after you who will do violence to you and your family. And all the judges, all the senators, all the congress people, all the local court judges and prosecutors and everything are just getting used to a steady stream of death threats, and not idle death threats from a violent right-wing mob that really does hurt and kill people, like Nancy Pelosi's husband. So it's a bad time we're living through, and I read sociology about it 10 years ago when they said the next civil war in America will be like this. It will not be a civil war with armies poisoning its armies. It'll be like the Irish Troubles, little mobs in like a town that blowing up something like an abortion clinic or a judge's house, little sporadic random violence, because there's no geographical distribution between the right and left here. All the rural counties are left and all the cities are all the rural counties are red and all the cities are blue, and so people will be just sort of blowing up their neighbors the way they did in Ireland, instead of having an army fighting an army. And that's where we're at. And like 90% of it is the right attacking the left. They're trying to pretend it's not true, but there have been studies testing it. As you'd imagine, the right has more guns, they're more violent. The left is mostly sort of peaceful hippie types. Now, there's some of them that are crazy and kill people, but it's very rare compared to the right. Anyway, Redis is a very strange database. It just stores key value pairs on a server. I've done some capture the flag problems with it. It's apparently very common and in a lot of use, and it's got a critical flaw, so everyone has to patch it. Anyway, I'm going to stop the news. That's enough.